Hello and welcome back to the Thesideescape Gaming Podcast, episode 142. I'm your host, Jake Burke, and I'm joined, as always, by James St. Charles. We've got Ken Libby down here, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Madeline Elizabeth Atlee Burke.
Oh.
Hello. Maddie, how are you today? What's going on with your life?
I'm good. Work's been going good. Family's good. It's good, you know?
Good, because enough about you. Enough about James, enough about Ted, because this is the 142nd episode of the Thesideescape Gaming Podcast, or the Thesideescape Movie Podcast today, because today we are talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbenheimer? I believe is what the kids are calling it, James. The kids are calling it Barbenheimer?
Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer. We both saw, all four of us saw these movies. I want to talk about them because they kind of took over the summer. They broke box office records. Francis Ford Coppola is talking about these movies and how it's a direction.
Wait, is he really?
Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola said, if you look at this weekend, it proves that movie audiences are there. They just want something new, exciting, and fresh.
I agree.
Yep. As a person that's only watched one episode of Secret Invasion, the Marvel thing, we need new shit.
Badly. A24 though has been making some good original stuff, and that's why good indie films.
And they get to film a lot of movies during the strike, which
they're
really
filming
weird.
A bunch right now. Well, because they agree to the strike's terms. That's why.
Yeah, because
they're like, go ahead. Nicolas Cage is starting in a new one.
I saw that.
Yeah, looks good. I like the premise.
Okay, but James, I don't want to talk about Nicolas Cage. I want to ask you really quickly. We all saw them. Give me your 1 or 2 sentence review of Barbie, of Oppenheimer, and which one you preferred. Which one you liked a little better. We're going to start with Maddie, because ladies go first.
Cool. I really liked both movies, to be honest. And it's really hard to pick which one I like better because they're so vastly different. I think I like Oppenheimer a little bit more, only because the fact that who knows, but he says that he did everything without CGI. Just some of the stuff that I just keep thinking about how he could have done it, and to me, that's very interesting. But I think overall, the movie that made me think more, and I think that resonated with me more, was Barbie.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that.
James.
Mm-hmm.
Barbie, Oppenheimer. You did it in one day. You and Ted both did these in one day.
So I Barbenheimered, and definitely Oppenheimer has a little asterisk next to it because it was after I watched Barbie. So I probably wasn't as in tune with it.
You messed
and
up
because
the
of
order
that,
there,
no. I think that's the right order because Oppenheimer's too long. Not is it like too long? It's 3 hours, and then you're gonna go into a 2-hour movie. So a 2-hour movie into a 3-hour movie is a little bit better. But anyways, so my take on it is I actually liked Barbie more than Oppenheimer. I think it was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
The message, like Maddie said, it was incredible. I thought it was pretty amazing. Like everything was just really good about it.
And we'll dive into like full spoiler stuff kind of in the back half of
what
we're talking about. Yeah.
And then Oppenheimer, to me, visually amazing, stunning, blew my ears out. Great little surprise sound effects everywhere, just like a typical Christopher Nolan. But it got a little too like documentary political-ish for me. Like it was definitely hammering on the after effects, which I think is okay. It's definitely the point of the movie. But it was just not to say like a lot of talking, but it definitely got onto the politics side, and the morality was there. But I wanted the effects to be a little bit more. Like they're practical and they were good, but just a little bit more. So Barbie for me won there. It had some really great scenes, just real creativity and hilarity.
Yeah.
Loved it.
West Side?
I left the theater that day with a good amount of Kenergy.
Wow. You do. You have Kenergy.
Hey Ted, you're Ken.
Yeah.
You know, Ken, Ted, you're not Ryan Gosling Ken though. Okay. You're like you're like the secondary Ken that's always following him around. You know, he's the bad guy in Secret Invasion, as we mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're that Ken. You're secondary drum Ken.
Yeah. I'm okay. I am okay with that. No.
Yeah, so it works. I'm okay with that.
You'll allow it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw the double feature. I saw Oppenheimer first. I saw it in IMAX in the front row.
Ooh,
I don't recommend.
Whoa.
No.
Yeah, I was in the splash zone.
that's a long movie.
Wait,
in the front row.
but Ted, just to clarify, you saw it at our Esquire IMAX that has the 70
Yes,
millimeter.
yes, the one out of 30
Wow.
theaters worldwide that got the 70 millimeter film?
Yeah.
Yep. So you saw scenes that we probably didn't see because of that.
Really? Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's because there's only certain scenes that could only be filmed in that.
You saw the full scope of the scene, not that there were new scenes in the movie.
No, you saw a bigger explosion.
Yeah.
I sure did, because I had to look every which way to see every little detail. But I liked it a lot. But my takeaway is that I liked Barbie a little bit more. It had a quirkiness to it that not a lot of films can have, or a lot of films are trying to capture, but not a lot of films, I think, nail it. And I think Barbie nailed it in its direction, its tone, it's kind of what it was trying to do.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Ted in that last sentiment of they're both films achieve exactly I think what they're trying to achieve. To pretty much I think the best that they could achieve it. I think Oppenheimer, in my opinion, was better for me. But I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan, and I think we all are in this group chat here that we are. But I just think that like Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan's kind of. You're not a Nolan guy. You hate Christopher Nolan.
We're Greta Gerwig people.
Sorry,
The
lady
Sacramento.
Represent. I'm not taking anything away from Greta Gerwig. Jesus Christ, Nolan's been in our life for a long time. All right. But I think like with Oppenheimer, he has achieved what he has been trying to kind of show, like the Academy Awards kind of side of filmmaking, that like he can make as good of a war biopic film than anybody. And that's what I think was such an achievement with Oppenheimer, is I think it's just like one of the best biopics ever made, because it doesn't feel like we're following this life in a boring fashion of like, here's how he grew up, here's how he did this. Like it's really like a story about.
It's not cookie cutter.
No.
Yeah.
In the way that Walk the Line, which is not a bad movie by any means, but at the same time, like you watch Walk the Line, then you watch another musical biopic, and you see
it's the same formula.
You see the exact structure of how a musical biopic works, to the point where they
Walk Hard.
Parried it. Yeah, they parried it in Walk Hard, and it's like to the T the same formula of the movie.
Yeah.
This was a biopic that felt, I don't even know if unique is the right word, but it felt original.
Yeah, it's The Social Network's like one of my favorite movies, and it really had like I felt very similar aspect to The Social Network, where it's really telling a story as opposed to telling the life of. Yeah. And I think that's like what really separates like a good biopic, is like, what story you're telling me, not what life are you telling me. Like Lincoln did that in a good way as well, of just like telling a period of a story rather than like Abraham Lincoln was born in 18 something something. But then Barbie is like one of the most original movies I've ever seen in a long time. Once we get to the spoiler section, I think I can really talk about why Barbie is like a top tier movie. But I really like both of them. I just think in the end, I think Oppenheimer, I will watch Oppenheimer more in my life, where I will probably watch Barbie once or twice more, and then clips from Barbie. Okay.
I would watch Barbie with someone who's never seen Barbie. Like, that's what I feel. But it's like, hey, you want to watch Oppenheimer? All right. What are you doing the next 3 hours? We're watching this.
Strap in.
It is fucking long, man.
It's long. I was gonna say, it's long.
It's a long movie, but like, did you like feel that it was really long? Like, when
no.
You like, no.
See, it's long, but you don't feel it at all. That's the best part.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
I think like oh, sorry, Maddie.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. That's the reason why I gave Oppenheimer the edge over Barbie personally, because there's that last... Wait, are we at the spoiler section yet or no?
You know what? Now we are.
Spoiler.
Okay.
Spoiler.
Now we are. Okay, so when it's a very beautiful moment where she's in like the other room and she's self-realizing, and she then steps into the real world. But for me, that I've seen that before, and it went on too long for me for having
Barbie
seen.
goes in that white void. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the white void.
Yeah.
Everything before that is totally like, I have no problems, but the white void specifically, I feel like I've just seen that done so many times, and then to have it done and then to have it go on kind of a long time for me to be kind of realizing like, I want to be out of this part of the movie now. That's why I gave Oppenheimer the edge, because I never felt that way during Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
But that's really the only reason, because I actually really liked both movies pretty much the same.
Yeah, but I think that shows a testament where a movie can have an extra hour in length and doesn't have this like the same pacing problem towards the end. Where like I think Oppenheimer has this moment where like they launched the bombs, like they the moral conundrum of wow I'm sorry I didn't mean that matter of fact. Spoiler alert, but like they have this huge meeting about like the bombs have dropped. He does this whole speech. The movie kind of like has like a brief cut, and you're like okay, and then the movie starts like the second part of the movie almost kind of starts a little bit, and it's like that's 2 hours in, and then you go there's another hour. We're like Barbie, I was like all right, I'm done with the Barbie world. It's been a great ride, but at an hour and 45 I'm ready to go home. We're like Oppenheimer was like keep fucking telling me this story, Nolan. You just keep taking me on a ride and I'm there. There's Scout. Yeah,
Oppenheimer had this like true Inception feel to it, where it just kept going and like you never knew what was gonna come next, and there was like this like tension that just dragged on every scene. And the best part about it, I think, was just the people they would introduce. Like Oppenheimer's great, but you would hear about Lawrence, Bohr, like these really really famous physicians, chemists, like Einstein. You like all these people that are like, holy shit, that's that guy. That guy invented like Bohr's model, like all these crazy foundational stuff, and all these really important people came together to work on the bomb. And then I was like, man, Oppenheimer, they were just saying he was just a spokesperson. I was like, I get that, but I mean, he's definitely was contributing more. Maybe in the later half of his life, he was definitely fighting stuff. But the people that were working on it, I just thought that was fascinating. Like all the incredible stuff, like Berkeley. Like you think about like, oh, Berkeley's like right there. It's right. It's right down there. Yeah. Like where they're working on this, the project, how it came to be. I like that. It's very exciting. It gave me big Inception vibes, like when they're like theorizing, like how do we like go deeper and what are we doing, gathering the team, like get the team together.
Dude, even like Oppenheimer has like a suit up moment in the movie. Right. Like my favorite. What I told Maddie after about the movie, I was like, my favorite part is like Nolan's made Batman, so he like gives J.R.R. Robert Oppenheimer a suit up moment, like where like they're like, why are you wearing this military uniform? You should wear something that's more you. And like it plays like fucking music, and he like walks over and like grabs his hat, grabs his pipe, and he's like, I'm fucking Oppenheimer. You're like, yeah, this is so cool. Like, wow.
So I think there are definitely weak parts in Barbie, but when I think about all the actors and characters in Oppenheimer, they're all strong.
Yeah,
like all incredible. They all work really well. Great cast.
I wanted to ask James, who out of both movies, like who are your stand-up performances from either or both movies? Like you can give me one or two.
Okay, so Ryan Gosling for
yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about Ryan Gosling.
Which is like I don't want to say it because it's like definitely like not supposed to be like highlight the man. Like it's definitely like not like that. But
James's favorite character was the patriarchy.
God, he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So good.
Like I didn't realize how funny he could be.
You should go see the other guys.
The other guys? The nice guys, Ted.
Oh yeah.
That was my oh my god, Ryan Gosling is funny movie.
You're welcome.
Oppenheimer.
Your first... What?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, your first Ryan Gosling is funny movie is always the best.
It's life-changing.
Whichever one it is.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my god, this guy's hilarious.
Yeah. That's why I feel like I could like show Barbie to like almost anyone. It's hilarious. But maybe Oppenheimer, maybe some people won't like it, which I can understand.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. plays an incredible, just serious, evil villain, kind of.
Yeah,
but he's like when I looked at like who that politician was and went back, 1-to-1. Like it's incredible.
Really? Yeah, I knew nothing of him. I
had to go back because like it's definitely like the part I'm not familiar with, but really really good. They all did that though. I feel like they all like dialed in who they're playing as. Like every single actor did. That's what their job is.
Yeah. I mean, even like Alden Ehrenreich was like fantastic, and Oppenheimer is just like the guy talking to Robert Downey Jr. Like that was his role, and he was great at it.
Right.
Yeah.
He had one job.
He had one job, and he did it. He was good exposition. Ted, what were some of your stand-up performances? And then I want to know like some of your deeper thoughts.
I mean, stand-up. I think Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, basically the stars, the people you're seeing. Barbie 4 did a really good job. A lot of the side characters were great, but were short. Like Michael Cera's Alan was hilarious. Very little screen time.
Ted, when he chokes out the dude with the shovel and he's like sleep or whatever, he's like, it's just so fucking funny.
I would have loved to see more Alan, to be honest. I thought there was gonna be more because I was like, they're teasing a little. I wish more.
Oh, there's going to be an Alan movie. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah, he's like a part of the Ken franchise that's about to start. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, a lot of the Barbie characters, the side characters were there more for bits than for like deep character profiles.
Will Ferrell was Will Ferrell.
He was, but he was
like,
great.
It was like watching Elf. Yeah,
exactly. Will Ferrell was a complete goofball, as he should have been. Perfectly cast to be a dipshit CEO. For Oppenheimer, I actually really liked a lot of the teeny tiny characters who didn't get much of anything. Josh Peck makes an appearance.
Yep,
I wanted to mention that he did great. Yeah,
like a lot of
he watched that voltage. Hey, he was important.
His hand shook real well over that button, James.
That's a huge like role. Like,
I know it is.
Yeah,
who, the button guy?
Yeah.
I
heard when Christopher Nolan was casting the button guy, Ted, he was like, I want to cast someone from Nickelodeon. And so they started watching a bunch of Nickelodeon shows. And he's like, get me Drake or Josh, either of them. And Drake, a lot of legal trouble, so they got Josh.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, not Drake. Ooh,
ooh.
Wait, is that true? That they actually looked at Nickelodeon?
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
It was between him and the girl from Zoe 101.
Okay, sure. No, but I like
Montana.
I like a lot of the smaller characters. I don't remember the actor's name, and I will look it up as I talk here. But the guy from Numbers did a great job.
Josh Hartnett?
Looks a lot different. Is that his name?
Yeah, he was in Pearl Harbor and all those movies. Josh Hartnett.
It was Oppenheimer's kind of buddy as he was traveling through Europe from the beginning.
Oh no, he's the guy from the Santa Claus and stuff.
Yes,
he's the elf.
Oh, that guy was great. Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah, he's from the Santa Claus, Matty.
What's his name? David Krumholtz?
Sure.
I believe is his name. Anyway, he did a great job. I haven't seen him act in 15 years. But he, again, small role, not a huge role. But I thought carried it very well.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., of course, did a great job. I watched an interview with him where he said, like, this was a really important role for him in his career because he was not allowed to have any punchlines.
Yeah.
Which something his character himself, Robert Downey Jr. has kind of been for 20 years. And so he said, this was very important for me to have a character with no punchlines, very serious, very, what was it, in the shadows kind of a character.
Yeah, he's kind of slimy.
Yeah, it's so important that he did this role because I think there's going to be he opens up the books in terms of like what he can do. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like when I was thinking about like people who could be in that role, it's like maybe Bryan Cranston, like that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
But Robert Downey Jr. doing these types of roles, stepping away from Iron Man and all that coming out. I'm looking forward to more of this.
It's like his Chaplin. He's going back to serious acting.
I like it. Right. I mean, he's great. But
well, and I think that's like a thing that Nolan does so smart in like all of his films. And now, especially now that he is Christopher Nolan. When a Christopher Nolan movie comes out, it's like a moment in time now for all like, especially our generation. We're like, dude, the new Nolan movie's out. But he like casts movie stars and he puts them in roles and like. He does a perfect thing with Rami Malek in this movie. Rami Malek appears in 2 scenes, an Best Actor Oscar winner, appears in 2 scenes and doesn't say a line in 2 scenes because he has a reveal later where Rami Malek is like the guy they bring into the court, but he doesn't talk before he talks in the court. But because you know
great court
speech. But because you know that actor, that resonates with you. Like if that was just some random, C-tier actor kind of guy that's been in like 3 things, it doesn't resonate with you when you see Rami Malek in a scene. And he does that. I think he did that very smartly with Robert Downey Jr. You pay more attention to Strauss's moments in the film because you know it's Robert Downey Jr. And you're like, well, he's clearly that's RDJ. So yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Well,
great job all around.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, James? Huh?
No, say what about you, Maddie?
Maddie, what were your stand-up performances?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, okay. I think Ken, obviously Ryan Gosling. I thought that was amazing. I actually think Michael Cera, I really loved his performance as Alan. Like I said, like I really would have liked to see more of him. Mm-hmm. And Oppenheimer, I thought Emily Blunt did a really good job. I loved that court scene where she keeps saying like you need to fight, and they set it up where like she may not be able to take the interrogation obviously, and then she just handles it like a pro. I was very impressed with that scene and with like the person in real life. I'd like to see if that was true or not. I would imagine it was, but it's just very cool.
I never really knew Oppenheimer was kind of like a womanizer type.
Yeah,
It was like whole.
Uh-oh. We lost James.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm
He's
back.
lost.
He's
still gone.
You back now, James?
Anyway, yeah.
I think you're back,
It's that
James.
time.
You're back.
Nope.
No, you
Oh,
are.
Am I
yeah,
back?
you're back.
You're back.
Okay.
A hard cut, and then we'll
What was
just
I saying?
splice that out.
There you go.
Oppenheimer was a womanizer.
Yeah. That was like really surprising, but they definitely did not hold back and
Yeah.
showed it all. Quite interesting, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am jumping off of Maddie's. I know like Cillian Murphy. We've seen him in a lot of shit and a lot of Nolan. I think it's really cool that Nolan got to use his guy as Oppenheimer and to tell like this story. This is a story I don't think that anyone could tell except for Christopher Nolan. To be very honest, the way that it's put together and done makes it an interesting story. But then Cillian Murphy like sells it.
And,
like,
he is Oppenheimer. Like,
he is Oppenheimer. He is in
Yeah.
every scene of the
Perfect
movie pretty much, besides like the few scenes that Robert Downey Jr. is in by himself. And one really cool thing I told Maddie recently, but like apparently the screenplay was all written in first person of Oppenheimer's perspective, which is like very rare for a screenplay to be written in first person. So that's really cool for the performance. I think that he got to kind of have this guideline of like his perspective through the film, which is very cool. I want to open up this conversation to actually, we're going to call this a Kenversation. We're going to talk about Ryan Gosling as Ken, because this guy might win an Oscar for this role. It's so fucking good.
I actually think he might.
I think he might too.
Yeah.
Can we talk about his song, I'm Just Ken? I listened to that today on Spotify. I'm not even gonna lie.
Really? I gotta.
I did.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
He sang it too.
Yeah. He sings Matchbox 20's Push. That's the
Yes.
song Ken sings when he discovers the patriarchy
Yeah.
and takes it back to his world. That's the song they sing is I wanna push you around. So fucking good. So good. What a perfect song choice. I've been telling Maddie my favorite line of both these movies is Ken looking at Barbie and saying, you know, I'm a lot less into the patriarchy once I realized it wasn't really about horses.
Now I was gonna say that. It was so good.
So good. I opened up this conversation, but I think when we saw the commercials for Barbie, it looked like a movie that was a fish out of water movie where Barbie and Ken go to the real world and they're going to experience our world.
Right.
Which we have seen in so many different movies. I think the smartest choice of this movie was that it's not that. It's actually about what happens in Barbie world. And having Ken learn about the real world and think he understands it and try to take that knowledge back to Barbie Land makes the plot so much more interesting than what I thought it was originally going to be about. I thought it was going to be about Barbie kind of spreading feminism, like not in a bad way, but like spreading that kind of that feminism that Barbie has in her world through the world. And I liked that it was actually about like almost the inverse of like why it's important to kind of have
Barbie's utopia is getting infected by the real world.
By the real world. And I think that's way more interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. Like if the juxtaposition, the sort of just like you can relate with this movie. I feel like anyone can relate to this movie. Like say like, oh yeah, that's pretty true. It's not really like that, and how they're like expecting like the real world to be when they go from Barbie Land to the real world, and then real world back to the Barbie Land. It's like, this is how it is here. So it's like you get both perspectives, and I think it was pretty interesting, and I was definitely like laughing my ass off the entire movie. But still, at sometimes like this is like pretty true. It's kind of sad, kind of interesting. I think when there's the whole movie where you guys, I just want to go back to when you're talking about like the ending and in terms of like Oppenheimer and in terms of this movie. Yeah, the ending was a little weak when I think about it. It was kind of just like ended on like kind of like a gag funny type thing.
Yeah,
but I think it sets itself up for potentially like a series could go on here. Like I kind of want more, but I'm like a little scared to ask for more because we've just had two unique movies come out this summer, and they're the best movies. And Barbie's, of course, dominating. Oppenheimer is right there. I'd be worried that they go like all in and try and franchise stuff. Although I heard Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is doing really well,
that's supposed to be a
that's
great
also
movie.
another unique kind of
yeah.
Art looks beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm excited for like new stuff, but also like based off of old franchises from our childhood, because I think we all can relate with Barbie. We're not like new to Barbie at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know about Barbie toys.
I'll take this moment to pivot into what the corporations have taken away from these movies.
Did you buy Mattel?
Yeah. So the two things. So yeah. First of all, the company Mattel, who apparently has had movies in production for years.
Yeah.
They have made a steadfast commitment to make all of their toy properties into movies.
The Uno movie, Ted.
They want to, and they use cinematic universe in their language when they announced it.
They called it the MCU, the Mattel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
It's just such just a face palmy moment of like, I don't think you understood why.
Didn't get it.
Yeah, why this was so great. Not because of the writing, or the direction, or its themes, or its tone.
It's brand.
Because it's a brand that everybody loved.
I think though, Ted, they'll take the exact same theme that is Barbie, like Mattel's kind of evil, and run with it into all their other movies. Well, whether it will work, I don't know, but I think everyone just laughing at it is kind of like.
I would love to bring that up. That Mattel they did not pull their punches and made fun of Mattel quite a lot,
and it worked.
Everything from like their stupid corporate building to their dumb CEOs.
Ted, it's the CEO line of Will Ferrell going, "Hey, whoa, we have done our part for women. We had a woman CEO in the '90s. I think there was another one, so that's two right there."
I love.
Before we get into the whole, let's talk about Mattel's other products. I actually have some questions for Maddie.
Okay.
Because I think with us three being dumb idiot guys, Barbie is fun for us. It's a movie that we can kind of relate to as in a way of like, yeah, we're the dominant side of a society. Let's look at the other side of it. But like as a woman, what did Barbie do for you as like a viewer? And like what were things that you were surprised that it approached through a plot kind of topic? But really, like as a viewer, like what did you take away from Barbie being really geared towards not geared towards women, but to kind of talk more about women openly, where we don't do that in movies?
Well, to be honest, it was very emotional for me because, first of all, I've never really seen a toy I played with as a kid have a movie before. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen like Transformers and all these other big like have their moment, and I've never seen like a girly toy have like a whole movie dedicated to them. So regardless, that was just really cool, first of all. Mm-hmm. No matter what direction it took, it was just exciting. And then because technically Barbie has had their own movies, but it's been like, the straight to VHS or straight to DVD thing where it's like, it's not, it's not a big deal.
Count.
Yeah, and so that was really cool. But then because it's Greta Gerwig, I mean, as we've seen in Lady Bird and Little Women, she has this way of capturing and describing what it's like to be a woman and exactly how I feel, but without I think sometimes it's hard to explain how that feels without someone receiving it as preachy or like trying to talk down. It's like it's a very hard line to toe, and like she always does, she does a great job with that. Like I thought when Barbie gets to the real world and she's like, I don't feel safe. She's like, but I don't feel like I'm in immediate danger, but I can feel everyone watching me and I feel uneasy. I thought I've never seen that described in a movie, but that's how it feels a lot of the time walking around. And then that the monologue that America Ferrera has just like nails exactly what it's like. And so it was just very, very cool to see that. And then just in like a very girly way, like looking at all the toys, like, and how like Barbie just like floats down instead of using the stairs, because like that's how you play like as a kid, just like, oh yeah, she just goes here. I never had a dream house, but I had friends who had dream houses, and that's like literally like what you did. Same.
Yeah.
You're just like, whoop, there it is. And then the details of capturing everything and just how it was. And I thought it was really smart because I never thought of it that like, because I never had a Ken doll and I didn't know anybody who had a Ken doll. And it just never occurred to me to think of Ken doll as an accessory to Barbie. Yeah. I just never thought of that before. I just knew that there were Ken dolls. And then to like have the opening scene be like an allegory for a space odyssey, but like really telling the
my God.
That was
amazing.
It was amazing, and just to really have it like actually highlight why Barbie was so important was very cool. But then I also loved the moment that America Ferrera's daughter has. It like really throws it back in her face. Like, you also actually did a lot of bad things too.
Right.
And so I like that she really brought that balance in and had both voices.
From the teenager, no less.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, right? Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a great way to describe how shitty a Barbie doll can impact your life.
Yeah.
When you're at that age when you're suddenly realizing you're not blonde and tall and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
Yeah, I really like that part.
When Helen Mirren, when Barbie's like, I'm no longer beautiful, and the narrator of Helen Mirren comes in and goes, just a note to the filmmakers, when trying to make this point, don't use Margot Robbie as your actress.
I love that.
I'm just like, absolutely so like aware of what that Barbie brand is about. Like, I think like, I'm not a woman, and I'm not going to try to speak to that, but I like to think I listen to Maddie a lot, and I have understood some of what you go through sometimes. And I think like that idea that like even the most beautiful of women, Margot Robbie, like in this world, by the pressures put on someone, can feel ugly, is like, that's what that moment was really meant to point out. Was like, dude, even Margot Robbie, because of all this shit, feels like she's ugly sometimes. I'm like, that's fucking crazy that we do this as a society. I thought it was really interesting. Both movies talk about our society in a very interesting, almost kind of call out the higher ups in a way. Barbie really talks about obviously the patriarchy and what would happen if women were created first and then man was created second, like Ken was. And then Oppenheimer shows like what happens in America, where we are the military complex of the world, is given their greatest weapon, and then they fucking McCarthyism the dude and fucking call him a communist and take everything away from him because they no longer have any use for him. And he gave you the fucking A-bomb. And that's how you repay him. And it's like, dude, both these movies tell a very similar story about how our society treats people and then tosses them away when they're no longer useful. And it's like crazy. That's what I took away from both movies. Yeah, fun stuff.
Very valid takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, that I thought was like the most interesting part of Oppenheimer in relation to Barbie was like, it is about society having use for something, and then when they're no longer useful, getting rid of it. No matter what you've done and what good you've caused, they only take from you. How morbid is that?
Send it. That's a great way.
Send it, man.
Yeah. Both movies have
punch it. They
strong
have very similar
messages.
themes. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It was interesting, James, too. You saying that like the end note of Barbie didn't connect with like that final joke was just like a joke, like a gag joke.
It was a gag joke. Yeah.
I would ask.
I was hilarious.
Well, I'd say for a woman, I think that's like the point. Is like it's a joke only you relate to. Right?
Oh, I think it was like when I think about how you're gonna end it, because it has such a strong message. Like it's funny, right? But it's like it's not like something like impactful. Like, hey, go out there and change the world or something like that. You know.
Oh.
But that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
In that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. You're because it's like builds up to like something important. Not saying it's not important, but it's like like she's like going for like an interview or something.
Gynecologists are important, James.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
They do make this world go round. All right.
Okay, more than you think. Let's just talk.
I know. That's what I'm
I
telling
really
you.
want to talk about that.
They have an important career.
They're extremely important.
Ted, you've been, I would say, the most quiet so far.
Okay.
What do you got? What's a thought that we haven't touched yet? God, the wine's making me kind of stutter a little bit.
So one criticism that I will put for Oppenheimer is I didn't really think the time jump aspects of it were really necessary. I think they made it tell a better story. Maybe that's the difference between a biopic of somebody's life and like the story is we were getting these little bits of Robert Downey Jr.'s character kind of talking in the past tense, like he was there kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it eventually rolls up into where he is at in real life. And then we get that trial scene kind of a thing. But I thought, and maybe I just don't know the history very well, but I thought that last little act, while it served the movie well, I didn't really understand what happened to Oppenheimer. Like I left the theater being like, what exactly? So they interrogated him for being potentially a communist. And I looked it up later, and I am not a historian, but apparently it has a lot to do with like Oppenheimer was really against the A-bomb after that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like he took a stance against it, was very much against the idea of an H-bomb or continuing to make bombs. And I thought the movie could have done a better job. Since we're talking about spoilers, it could have done a better job of like really diving into that point of like why he did not want more bombs, or maybe into what his thinking was about like we were going to make one and then we were going to be done finally, or to a point of like he wanted it to be used on Germany and it ended up being used on somebody else. We never saw a bombing of Japan scene, which I'm sure was done tactfully. Like there was
I think that's on purpose.
Never gonna
yeah,
happen.
there was the auditorium bit, but it wasn't really like in your face. Like I was ready to really like be shown the horror of what an atomic bomb can do. Like because it's pretty bad. It's pretty rough.
It is, but
there's a museum in Hiroshima that lets you know how bad it is.
The reason you don't see that in the movie is because Oppenheimer didn't see it.
Oppenheimer didn't see it. Yeah, so I thought the movie was going to take a much more like a less biopic-y stance at the end and be like, this, A-bombs are bad, but instead it went much more into like just his experience of it, which was just a different direction. I don't want to say that was bad necessarily.
What's
that was kind of my one little critique of Oppenheimer.
What's interesting on your point with going out the critique is I always thought about like they had that moment where they're like, hey, Germany's defeated, do we even need this bomb anymore? And they have a discussion on whether or not they're going to continue. They choose to continue on. And I thought about, well, what if they just like pause? Like, let's say they finished their work and they just paused and that was it. Bomb was never dropped. Like somehow we defeated Japan. Like somehow it was done. We probably just firebombed like crazy because firebombs killed more than the nuke did. But we're not gonna talk about that. But and then I think back. I was like, oh, there was a spy. Russia would have eventually had the bomb. They probably could have used the bomb, and it would have been much worse. Like you always think about these what if scenarios. Like, and now we're at the world that we're at right now. We're almost like all the major powers have nukes.
Yeah,
and we all have ticking time bombs that can destroy the world.
Yeah, Maddie and I talked a lot about that kind of after the movie. It was like the almost the moral questions of like dropping the bomb and what it meant and if it was necessary and what would have happened if we didn't do it. And there are so many great lines in Oppenheimer that are like the politicalness behind war. One of them is the picking of the targets line where they talk about like what city to bomb. And the general goes, well, we can't bomb Kyoto because of its historical significance. Also, my wife and I took a honeymoon there, and it was absolutely stunning, and I loved it. We just can't do it.
And I believe that's a true.
Yes.
That was true. Yeah, that picking the cities. Yeah.
Secretary of Defense or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Secretary of Defense's honeymoon was there.
And so he didn't want it bombed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought like that line paints that kind of the politicalness of war, that it is not that. But I think the interesting scenario is that hearing about Germany also starting the A-bomb project, 6 months to 8 months earlier, and Robert Oppenheimer being like, the one advantage we have is the anti-Semitism from Hitler. And like, he's not going to give the resources to all these Jewish scientists that they're asking for because they're Jewish. And we can do this faster because we don't have that hatred. Is I think so interesting that like, it was just this arms race that obviously continued for the next 40 years throughout the Cold War between between Russia and us and them achieving the H-bomb before us and all this stuff. But I just thought that was there was such great like politicalness behind the bomb and why it was made.
There's a lot of political subtlety.
Yeah, and we don't get that a lot in our history books and in our classes. Like we don't get the history of the Manhattan Project. They don't talk about that. Right. We just know that like Einstein wasn't in it. Like that's all we know, like really about the Manhattan Project. So to have this kind of movie that talks about the morality of that project is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think to have that near zero conversation about like destroying the world's atmosphere and near zero being like almost like the overarching theme of the whole movie, and then having it kind of hit that ending line about like him talking to Einstein at the end of him being like, we talked about that possibility of ending the world because of this. I think that started. Like we started that, and it's like, oh fuck. Yeah, I just think that like they both had great button line endings, both movies, but I think the theming of that whole thing was really interesting with Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on these movies?
They're both great. Both should be seen for different reasons, or maybe for the same reason, as Jake pointed out. I guess my final thought, I'll throw it back at you guys. What awards do these movies win, if anything?
Ooh.
I think if Nolan's ever had a chance to win Best Picture, it's this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think right now where it stands, Nolan will win Best Director.
Okay.
Because I think the undertaking of Oppenheimer, the lack of CGI, apparently, according to Nolan, there are no full CGI shots. There are no CGI. There's not a lot of CGI in the movie. Things may be touched up in post, but there are no like CGI shots in this movie, which is incredible. I think this is Nolan's. If this could be Nolan's best picture, and I think that it fits being Nolan's best picture. I think that you have a good. I think Barbie's going to win a lot of technical awards, production design, costumes, all of that stuff. I think has a really good shot. I think acting, Ryan Gosling has a surprisingly good chance, but I think so does Robert Downey Jr., and they're going to be in the same category.
Right.
I don't know about Cillian Murphy. We'll see. And sorry.
Okay.
No, please, man.
Oh, I was just going to add, I think Barbie can get best screenplay, original screenplay.
It's going to go up against Oppenheimer. They'll both be in the same category, which would be interesting.
But I think, but Oppenheimer is based off of a book, right? So it'd be adapted screenplay.
Barbie would probably be adapted because it's based off a brand.
Oh, that's okay.
Really how that works?
That's dumb.
If it exists, then it
I
is.
guess there is a world in which you could argue that Barbie's not original because Greta Gerwig didn't invent Barbie for the purpose of this movie.
I get,
the last few years,
These
the voting categories have been way all over the place on how they judge this. So it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell.
Well, I have a just like final thing. So like both movies are great.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts currently on the cinema landscape in terms of the strikes going on and what we're gonna get?
Do you want to come with me to see Saw Patrol, the double feature being pushed by the Paw Patrol people to see Saw and Paw Patrol in the same day?
Saw Patrol?
No.
That sounds amazing.
Pushing that hard.
That's
and
awesome.
That's super stupid.
No, that sounds terrible.
I haven't heard that, but that's hilarious.
Those are two movies that I don't want to see.
No, that's completely like opposite.
That'd be like seeing Barbie and Oppenheimer in the same day.
No. It's like seeing Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Barbie at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no.
One's plastic face, one's leather face. Come on.
Plastic face. That's the sequel to Barbie.
Plastic face.
Yeah.
Ted, what are your final thoughts?
I'm really excited for award season to see what pictures win what. I would love to see how the history book remembers both of these two movies, both as movies and as events. Because I will say Barbie has gotten almost everybody I know to the theater.
Yep.
Which is something that I have not seen or heard of since Endgame, I guess, is when people who didn't, who I wouldn't normally pick to be blockbuster people to go out and see a movie. My mom is seeing Barbie right now. She's very excited. My mom hasn't been excited about a movie in forever.
My mom see it.
Since
her last film,
Love Actually.
Love Actually.
Yeah. So,
nailed it. Maddie, any final thoughts?
Well, I kind of want to go back to James' message about the strike. I think that's really interesting. I'm curious to see how that works. I know Jake and I have talked about how like Dune will probably get pushed back to next year since they're going to be running out of movies soon.
No.
Yeah, I know.
They can't do that.
I know.
I know that they pushed the Emmys, right?
Oh, did they?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because right now the Emmys would just be a press release because nobody could attend them and nobody could do anything for it. Yeah. The strike is super interesting, just how it affects like everything. Like you can't do podcasts.
It's very important. It's very important that's happening. It's good that it's happening. But a lot of stuff's gonna get pushed, like we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna have a lot of movies towards the end of the year and beginning of next year. So
it's important to go see these movies.
Exactly. You gotta go.
Well, you still can.
Well, and support like new ideas in the theaters. I mean, that's like
A24 movies too.
That's I guess that's my ultimate takeaway. Is like these were two new ideas of movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
And having been, I think I've even told Jake and James on this podcast, I've been pretty sick of seeing movie franchise number 15 in the theater. So it's really nice to see the something original.
Yeah, it's really interesting when we went to Regal to go see both these movies. They do like the Regal Movie Pass like kind of ad that's like get our movie pass and for unlimited adventure and unlimited whatever, and they show like 4 movies, and 3 of those movies they show in their summer preview are already out of the theaters because they bombed. It's like Indiana Jones, the weird she's like a mermaid animated movie and something else.
Yeah.
And then they show Barbie, and it's like they show like 3 or 4 movies that are already out of theaters because nobody went and saw them. Because people want new shit. And that's where you're at right now. We want new things to go see, new experiences.
Well, I mean, Haunted Mansion was out this past week, right? And that completely like
bombed.
Yeah.
Oh, is it bad?
Well, you release Haunted Mansion not in October.
I
feel like it's like the worst time ever.
It also looks like a Disney Plus movie.
Yeah.
That's right, because the real Haunted Mansion is with Eddie Murphy.
Exactly.
Go see the classic now. Your local Blockbuster. Yeah.
Your local Blockbuster.
Wow.
Thank you so much for watching the 142nd episode of the Sidescape Gaming Podcast or the Sidescape Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Burke. That's Ted Libby or Ken Libby. That's James St. Charles. And that's Madeline Atlee Burke. And we will see you next week. Bye. Did you notice how like my mic was been off this whole like my face and my mic is like way off?
Yeah, it's been off the entire time.
Your camera. No, after your camera like your camera blinked, and then
I thought you were
you
just
got
having a stroke, but I didn't want to be impolite.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think it's when Gunnar joined in and like everything went to shit.
Oh, maybe it went that. I wasn't sure if it was when your camera shut off or was when like someone joined. Maybe.
No, it was Gunnar, it's Gunnar's fault.
Yeah.